Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing The Witcher: Time of Contempt. This is the second book in the Witcher saga, but it is the fourth book if you count all the books that had been made up until this point. So before I'll start, I'll just show you the books that has been before Time of Contempt. And we have two short story collections, and this is the first one, The Last Wish. Then we have the Sword of Destiny, also short story collection, where you are introduced to a lot of Witcher characters central to the books and also the video games and maybe as well the board games as well. And then you have the first book of the saga, which is The Blood of Elves. And as some of you know, I have a Witcher project on the channel, meaning I'm reading the books, playing the video game Witcher 3, and trying out the Witcher Old World board game, trying to understand the different ways of storytelling. But today, more specifically, I will just talk about the book, Time of Contempt. It's spoiler free, actually. Basically, if you don't want to know anything about Time of Contempt, please turn this video off. But these are so small and minor spoilers, so I say this is more a discussion on the Witcher saga as a whole, and I hope you will enjoy that as well, even if you haven't read Time of Contempt. First of all, I would like to briefly reflect upon the title, Contempt. Contempt for what? I think that when you read especially the short stories, you are not convinced what stories, the deeper meaning of the stories. Is it just entertainment? Does the Witcher saga has a deeper meaning, etc., etc.? We don't know. It seems like these stories are most written for entertainment, and as I have learned it was published in a Polish magazine, and Sapkowski, the author, wrote more and more stories because people wanted that, and maybe that's the reason why they seem to be so popularized, you could say. Maybe only entertaining. There doesn't seem to be something deeper than the monster hunting and a lot of humor and a lot of stereotypical descriptions of different people, which you don't know if it's serious or if it's not, or if it's a critique or not. You don't know that really. But I think with this book, Time of Contempt, everything becomes a little bit clearer, that there are probably some societal critique in the Witcher saga. We already know that the description of Geralt from the short stories and from The Blood of Elves, for example, is that he's a very different person. He feels like an outsider. He has a special code. He kills monsters, but he doesn't kill all kinds of monsters, for example. He's himself considered to be a monster. So you have this outcast perspective, the otherness, the stranger perspective in the Witcher saga, for example. That is very obvious. But in the Time of Contempt, we get other things highlighted as well. We have a political struggle between nations. We have the coming of age story of Ciri. We also have the class perspective, I would say, between the common folk and the mages and the sorcerers and so on, because the Witcher world is a deeply dystopian world where it's plague-ridden, and it has this gap between those who can read and cannot read, and almost like reading is some kind of magic. I know that has been the case in humanity's history, for example. So I think the Time of Contempt and this expression contempt maybe catches something of the ideas for this book series by Sapkowski. I'm not sure. I'm curious to hear what you think about that, because I think there is a contempt for a lot, a contempt for this world, which is very brutal, which is very unequal when it comes to gender, when it comes to life opportunities, when it comes to who's in power or not, and so on. Who's the norm? Who is the accepted person? What's the norm? Yeah, what's the norm? So I think there's a lot to talk about when it comes to time of contempt. But I would like to just draw you back to an ordinary book review where I just talk a bit about what the book about and so on, and I will catch up with this contempt theme, which I've already started here. And when I started to read the short stories, I was not convinced 100% that Sapkowski would be able to pull this off, with the big fantasy saga. I'm only at the second book in the Witcher saga, but the fourth book, as I said, if you count everything together. But actually, after reading Time of Contempt and actually started a little bit in the next book, Baptism of Fire, I say I'm convinced, but because there are so many themes that Sapkowski highlights in the book, and he also have many different layers of storytelling. Because the short stories are individually focused, I would say, on the characters and character development, almost like a video game, actually. And then we have the Blood of Elves, which introduces us to Ciri especially, and to magic blood, and to the Wild Hunt, for example, all these lore concepts. It's still very heavily individually focused, and of course focused on Geralt of Rivia, the main character, who is the monster hunter, if you don't know that. He's a very interesting person, and you also have all the characters around Geralt, which we probably all know who are watching the video, with Yennefer, and we have Dandelion, for example, many other characters that are introduced in Blood of Elves and are continued to go on into Time of Contempt. We are in the first book, we understand that there are other things going on, like a conflict on a, what do you say, epic scale, cataclysmic scale, so to speak. We understand that there are powers here in the Witcher world that fights between each other and wages war. There's a Game of Thrones like, I would say, conflict going on in the Witcher world. Not so apparent in the short stories, becomes clearer in Blood of Elves, becomes very, very apparent in Time of Contempt. So I think Time of Contempt, it opens up the Witcher saga in a way that we understand that this is epic. Difficulties for me understanding how epic is this saga. Not necessary for me to have it epic, but since it's many books for me to read further, I want it to be epic, of course. So that's interesting, and that was my doubt with Sapkowski, because I thought I think his short storytelling is so good. So how could he manage to do this transition from short stories to long stories? I think he made it very good. There are a few ways that Time of Contempt opens up the story. First of all, the prose is very good in all the books he has written so far, or the books I've read so far that he has written. It's quick, it's witty, it's very serious when it needs to. He's very skilled in putting in serious themes that I was mentioning in the beginning of this review. First thing he introduces here in Time of Contempt, even more clear, is the political intrigue, the conflict between nations, between people, between different powers. Also introducing a lot of lore here. The Blood of Elves, we understand that is elf blood. If we look at the title of the first book, this kind of mythology and lore is expanded upon in the second book, Time of Contempt, and this is something I think he does very skillfully, and that is very, very engaging. It's not these big lore dumps like we have in CRPGs, for example, like the Pillars of Eternity that me and Rick talked about last week, or in Malazan Book of the Fallen, for example, where we have a lot of lore dumps. It's not so much lore in that sense, but you understand the implications of the lore. It's more similar to J.R.R. Tolkien in that way, how lore is introduced in this world. So I think that's actually very, very interesting. I think the world, since it has this political intrigue, is more, as I said, more like Game of Thrones or medieval history, also that kind of world, but then it blends with mostly folklore, with the monsters and the mythology and the fables, you could say. This is apparent in Time of Contempt too, maybe not as much as in the short stories and Blood of Elves, but it's still there. There is also a coming of age story in Time of Contempt, which started in the first book with Ciri, the girl that Geralt so much wants to protect, and that so many people care about. And she has many people around her, and also the sorcerer Yennefer, which is kind of a guardian or a teacher to Ciri. Why and so on, we don't know. I don't know this fully yet. It's interesting to explore. However, it feels like Geralt is maybe the reliable type, or maybe it's not, I don't know. And Yennefer, the sorcerer, for example, is maybe more tricky and not reliable. So we don't know. Because Ciri is considered to be protect worthy for different reasons I won't reveal here. And we don't know the incentives for people wanting to protect her or trying to protect her. If someone is interested, I'm very curious to talk about this book in a spoiler video. So if you're watching and want to be part of such a discussion, please write that in the comment below. I would be happy to do that. I also think that the Witcher saga is growing here in the sense that we understand that there are many books, because there is a strange thing in the Time of Contempt, and that is that the main action scenes are in, I think, in the first 250, 270 pages. The book is not that long, but still. So the pacing is a bit weird, actually, because we follow Ciri, and she's being educated and learned about life and about magic and other stuff, mostly by Yennefer, and then they're going to magic gathering, Tanith, and without saying too much about that. That is a very eventful scene and very, very important for the book, and as some of you have told me, very important for the Witcher saga as a whole, everything that takes place in Tanith. But this is early in the book, and first I was confused, and I understood that maybe you should read the Witcher saga as one book almost. I don't know if it's like that. Maybe you know, I've read all the books in the Witcher saga. So beware of pacing if you haven't read this yet, but enjoy it too, because it means that you have a lot to look forward to. Yeah, and then I think, as I said, the contempt theme is very strong in this book. Contempt for everything. I think this book, it feels like this is a critique of something. It can be critique of the time that we're actually reading about if we don't put too much effort on analyzing the book. Contempt of the time that Witcher lives in, and what time is that? It's time of political intrigue, it's time of plagues, it's time of poverty, it's a time of knowledge gap between poor and rich, and as I said, reading could be considered magic. It's a contempt for all the injustices when it comes to gender, for example, that is highlighted in this book in different ways. And I know people have different views on that, and especially in this book, it seems to be very divisive. But for me personally, the things portrayed here in the book is not something I endorse, so to speak. But I think they are raising important questions. Actually, the book, I think the Witcher saga as a whole might go from being more of a young adult fantasy. That's my impression when I started to read Witcher in the beginning. And in this book, it matures to be more, now I'm saying grimdark, but I don't really mean the grimdark Scott Backer style, for example. But not far away from that, because many of the scenes here are very, very grimdark and very, very brutal and very tragic and very, very sad. So it raises awareness, if you want to at least, about different kinds of injustices. There is a kind of contempt against strong leaders, kings, queens, and strong nation states, and in a way, I would say against chauvinism as well. Well, if you want to read it in that way, I did it at least. So I'm curious to hear what you think about that kind of analysis. So with that said, the contempt theme, it can be elaborated upon much, much more than I will do in this short video. But that's something that really caught my attention with the book and made me curious to continue. Where does this story take us further? So Baptism of Fire, as I've said, I've just started it. Many people say it's the best one in the series. So when I quit this video, I will go back to my couch and continue to read the book, actually, because it's so exciting. So what about you? If you have read Time of Contempt or the Witcherbooks up till that point, please tell me your reflection without spoiling things. If you want to talk spoilers with me, please write it and we can do it together. So that was everything for this video and for this reflections on The Witcher, Time of Contempt. You have other book reviews here on the channel. It's June, it's my last book of the Fallen, of course. We have books by Stephen Erickson and Ian C. Esselmont and a lot of things more. And also now some focus on storytelling and video games. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please have a nice day. It's a Saturday here. I'm drinking a great pu'er tea today, Simao Palace Pu'er. So if you can get it, do it. It's very nice, sweet and tasty. But I've actually started to drink some black tea as well. So that's a bit of a new thing for me, actually. So with that said, see you very soon. A lot of things coming up during this weekend on the channel and also during the next week. So I hope to see you then. And next thing up is actually a video with a contemplative reader, Jay. We're going to talk about The Book of the New Sun tomorrow by Gene Wolfe. So if you're interested in that, please check that up and tune into the channel, and see you later. Thank you and bye.